The engines of the private jet hummed like a lullaby in the background. The cabin was dimly lit, calm, almost too calm. Outside the windows, clouds rolled like endless waves in the sky. Inside, crystal glasses clinked softly, silver trays gleamed, and passengers reclined in plush leather seats. Among them sat Eleanor Hartley, wife of billionaire Richard Hartley, the man whose name alone made markets tremble. She was elegant, wrapped in a silk shawl, her diamond bracelet catching the faint light. She smiled faintly, though her skin looked paler than usual. Richard leaned toward her. "Are you all right, darling? You look tired." She forced a smile. "Just a little dizzy. It's nothing." But it wasn't nothing. Not tonight. The jet staff hurried about, serving drinks and meals. At the far end, near the service cabin, a boy no older than 17 clutched a rag and a spray bottle. He was Liam, the janitor. He wasn't supposed to be in the passenger cabin. His job was to clean after everyone was asleep. But tonight they were short-staffed, and he'd been asked to tidy quickly before service. He kept his head low, avoiding eye contact with the rich guests. His sneakers squeaked faintly on the polished floor. He didn't belong here. He knew it. Everyone knew it. Then it happened. A muffled gasp. A sudden thud. Eleanor's wine glass slipped from her hand and shattered on the carpet. Her body convulsed once, then collapsed sideways in her seat. "Eleanor." Richard's voice cracked as he grabbed her. The room froze. The laughter, the idle chatter, it all stopped. Only the steady roar of the engines filled the silence. A flight attendant rushed forward. "Sir, please let me." "Call the pilot. We need to land now." Richard barked. His hands trembled as he shook his wife gently. "Stay with me, Ellie. Stay with me." Her lips turned pale. Her chest rose shallowly. And then nothing. A wave of panic surged through the cabin. One woman screamed. Another man pulled out his phone uselessly, forgetting there was no signal this high up. "She's not breathing," the attendant cried, her own hands shaking. Someone shouted, "Is there a doctor on board?" But there wasn't. Not tonight. In the corner, unnoticed, Liam froze. His rag slipped from his hand. His heart pounded, so hard he thought the whole jet could hear it. He took one step forward, then stopped. What could a janitor do? These people wouldn't even look at him, let alone trust him with a billionaire's wife. He was just a kid. But then he saw Richard's face. The billionaire, always so powerful, so unshakable, now looked broken, desperate, helpless. Tears burned at the edges of his eyes. And Eleanor, her stillness was terrifying. Liam clenched his fists. His chest heaved. Something deep inside whispered, "If you don't act now, she'll die." The cabin echoed with panicked voices. The attendant fumbled with the emergency medical kit, her hands trembling too much to open it. Richard begged under his breath, "Please, God, don't take her. Not like this." Liam stepped forward. I can help." Every head turned. The boy's voice cracked, but it cut through the chaos. Richard spun around, his eyes narrowing. "You? Who are you?" The teenager swallowed hard. His palms were sweating. I know CPR. I was trained last summer. Please. Just let me try." For a long, tense moment, silence weighed on the cabin. The attendants glanced at one another, uncertain. Passengers shook their heads, whispering at Janitor. Richard's jaw tightened. His whole life, he had dealt with billion-dollar deals, ruthless competitors, and endless power struggles. But never had he felt this powerless. Never had he faced a choice like this. Trust a boy with his wife's life, or watch her slip away before his eyes. Richard's voice was raw. "If you hurt her." "I won't," Liam whispered, his voice trembling yet steady. "But if we wait, she won't make it." The seconds ticked like thunder in the air. The passengers held their breath. The engines roared on. Richard finally moved aside. His voice broke. "Do it. Save her." Liam dropped to his knees beside Eleanor, his hands trembling as he tilted her head back. The boy's heartbeat thundered in his ears. He placed his hands on her chest, took one deep breath, and pressed down. 1, 2, 3. The entire jet was silent, every eye fixed on the teenage janitor. And then, nothing. Her chest didn't move. Her lips stayed pale. Liam clenched his teeth. His arms shook, but he pressed again. Harder this time. Sweat trickled down his forehead. Would it work? Or had he just risked everything, his job, his dignity, his life, for nothing? In that frozen moment, with the fate of a billionaire's wife in his hands, could a janitor's courage really rewrite destiny? Liam's palms pressed against Eleanor's chest again and again. His breath came in short, sharp bursts. The cabin was heavy with silence, broken only by the rhythm of his compressions and the muffled sobs of Richard. "Come on, please," Liam muttered under his breath, his voice shaking. He leaned down, pinched Eleanor's nose gently, and breathed into her mouth. Her chest rose slightly, then sank again, lifeless. "Nothing," one passenger whispered, their voice trembling. "Stop this madness," another hissed. "He's just a janitor. He doesn't know what he's doing." But Richard's eyes stayed locked on Eleanor. His fists were clenched, his knuckles white. He wasn't listening to anyone, not the whispers, not the fear, not the disbelief. He was watching a boy fight for the woman he loved. The flight attendant hovered nearby, wringing her hands. I should call the cockpit," she stammered. "No," Richard snapped, his voice raw. "We don't have time. Let him continue." Liam's arms burned, his muscles screaming, but he didn't stop. "Come on, breathe," he whispered. "Please breathe." Beads of sweat trickled down his forehead, blurring his vision. His heart pounded, so hard he thought it might explode. And then, suddenly, a faint cough rattled from Eleanor's throat. Everyone gasped. Her body jerked slightly, her lips parted, and a weak, shaky breath escaped her. "She's breathing," Liam shouted, his voice cracking. Richard dropped to his knees, clutching her hand. "Ellie, my God, Ellie, can you hear me?" Her eyelids fluttered, heavy, as though it took all the strength in the world to move them. She whispered something no one could quite hear. Richard leaned in closer. "I'm here, love. You're safe. Stay with me." For a moment, relief washed over the cabin like a wave. But it didn't last. Her breathing was shallow. Too shallow. Liam's chest tightened. He knew enough to recognize this wasn't over. He looked up, meeting Richard's desperate eyes. "She needs oxygen. Now." The attendant scrambled, fumbling with the medical kit. The hiss of the oxygen tank filled the air as she rushed to place the mask over Eleanor's face. Eleanor's chest rose again, weak, fragile, but alive. Passengers whispered, their voices buzzing like restless bees. "Did he just save her? He's just a kid." "How? A janitor? Impossible." But Richard didn't care what anyone said. He grabbed Liam's shoulder with trembling hands. His voice cracked, hoarse with emotion. You gave me back my wife." Liam looked down, embarrassed, his face flushed. "I just did what I could, sir." Richard's eyes glistened. For the first time in years, the billionaire had no words. But even as relief seeped in, a new dread hovered in the air. Eleanor's pulse was faint. Her color hadn't returned. The oxygen was helping, but not enough. "She's not stable," Liam whispered. His voice trembled, but his eyes were firm. "We need to land. Immediately." The attendant rushed to the intercom, her voice urgent. "Captain, we need an emergency landing. Medical situation critical." The engines roared louder as the jet began to descend. The seatbelt signs lit up. The passengers gripped their armrests, fear mingling with relief. Richard clung to Eleanor's hand, pressing it against his forehead. His voice was a broken prayer. "Hold on, Ellie. Please just hold on." Liam sat back, his arms heavy, his chest heaving. He felt the weight of every second. He wasn't a doctor. He wasn't supposed to be here. And yet, for one fragile moment, he had been the only thing standing between life and death. He stared at Eleanor, watching her fragile breaths. "Don't you dare give up now," he thought. The cabin tilted slightly as the jet descended through the thickening clouds. Lights flickered. A baby cried somewhere in the back. Every sound seemed magnified, stretched by the tension gripping every soul on board. And then, Eleanor's body went limp again. Richard's cry pierced the air. "No, no, Ellie." The attendant's face turned pale. Passengers screamed. Liam's eyes widened, his heart plummeting. Not again. Not now. He dropped back to his knees, his voice breaking. Stay with me. Don't leave us now. As the jet plummeted through the stormy night sky, with Eleanor's life slipping away again, one question haunted everyone. Could a teenage janitor truly keep death at bay twice? The cabin tilted, lights flickering as the plane descended into turbulence. Eleanor's chest had stilled again, her face drained of all color. Richard's scream cut through the roar of the engines. Ellie, no, stay with me. Passengers panicked, some covering their mouths, others frozen in horror. The air felt heavy, thick with dread. Liam's body moved before his mind could catch up. He shoved aside the oxygen mask and positioned himself over Eleanor once more. No, 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 he whispered, his hands trembling. You're not leaving. Not yet. His palms pressed down firmly on her chest. The thump-thump rhythm echoed like drumbeats in the tense silence. His breaths came ragged as he counted softly under his breath. 1, 2, 3. The sound of his compressions mixed with the faint rattling of utensils and glasses shaking from the turbulence. The flight attendant crouched nearby, her face pale. Shouldn't we stop him? He's just. Richard whipped his head toward her, his eyes blazing. He's doing more than any of you. Let him work. The attendant's mouth shut instantly. Liam bent down, giving Eleanor another breath. His lips trembled, but his determination didn't waver. He had trained for moments like this, never expecting to use it here, on a billionaire's wife, in a private jet thousands of feet above the earth. But now there was no one else. Just him. Suddenly, Eleanor's body convulsed, a violent shudder tearing through her. Her chest rose sharply, and a weak wheeze slipped from her lips. She's back. Liam shouted, relief flooding his voice. Richard let out a sob that sounded half like laughter. He cupped his wife's face with shaking hands. Ellie, my love, oh thank God. But Eleanor's eyes rolled back, and her breathing remained fragile, too fragile. She wasn't safe yet. Liam sat back, panting, his arms heavy as lead. She needs a doctor. We have to land faster. The intercom crackled with the captain's voice. Ladies and gentlemen, we're making an emergency descent to Denver. Please remain seated and fasten your seatbelts. Medical assistance will be waiting. The plane jolted as it cut through thick clouds, thunder rumbling outside. Lightning illuminated the windows in violent flashes, casting everyone's faces in pale light. The passengers clutched their armrests, hearts pounding. Yet all eyes kept darting back to the boy kneeling on the carpet, his hands stained with sweat and trembling, his eyes glued to the fragile woman lying unconscious. One man, a wealthy investor seated nearby, sneered under his breath. Ridiculous. A janitor saving a billionaire's wife. If she dies, it'll be on him. Richard's head snapped toward him, his voice like fire. If it weren't for him, she'd already be gone. The man shrank back, silenced by the fury in Richard's voice. Liam didn't hear the exchange. His ears rang with his own heartbeat. He kept staring at Eleanor's chest, counting each shallow rise and fall, terrified the next breath wouldn't come. Come on, stay with us, he whispered. Just keep fighting. Minutes stretched like hours. The cabin smelled faintly of spilled wine and fear. Eleanor's body twitched occasionally, but she remained unconscious. Richard clutched her hand tightly, his forehead pressed against her knuckles. His shoulders shook, his voice a broken whisper. I can lose everything else, Ellie. Just not you. Please, not you. A lump formed in Liam's throat. He had never seen someone so powerful look so small, so helpless. It struck him deeply. Money, status, power, none of it mattered right now. Life was fragile, and death didn't care who you were. The plane finally pierced through the storm, descending lower. City lights twinkled faintly beneath the clouds. Relief buzzed through the passengers. But for Liam, it wasn't over. Not until Eleanor opened her eyes. Suddenly, her body jolted violently, her chest heaving as though she were choking. Help her, Richard cried. Liam quickly tilted her head, clearing her airway. Eleanor gasped, a harsh, rattling breath scraping from her throat. Her eyes fluttered open, dazed, weak, but alive. Richard cried out, tears spilling freely. "Ellie, oh Ellie." For the first time, she managed a faint whisper. "Richard?" He gripped her hand tighter, laughing through tears. "Yes, my love. I'm here. You're safe." But just as relief swept through the cabin again, the captain's voice broke in over the intercom, urgent and grim. "Attention. We may have another problem. The storm has forced us to divert. Medical teams may not reach us in time." With Eleanor barely clinging to life and the storm rerouting their descent, would a teenage janitor have to fight for her life a third time, alone? The jet shuddered violently as lightning cracked across the sky, illuminating terrified faces in brief, white flashes. The captain's voice still echoed in everyone's ears. "Medical teams may not reach us in time." A thick silence followed. It wasn't the kind of silence that comforted. It was the kind that pressed against everyone's chest, heavy and suffocating. Richard's jaw tightened as he clung to Eleanor's frail hand. "No," he muttered fiercely. "They will be there. They have to be." But Eleanor's shallow breaths told another story. Each inhale sounded weaker, as if life itself was slipping through her grasp. Her lips trembled. Her skin was cold, clammy. Liam's pulse raced. He could hear it in his ears, faster than the thundering engines. He glanced at Richard, then at Eleanor, then at the flight attendant fumbling with the first aid kit. He swallowed hard. "She's fading again." Richard's eyes snapped toward him, filled with raw desperation. "Then don't let her fade. Please." Liam knelt beside Eleanor once more, sweat dripping from his forehead. He whispered to himself, almost like a prayer, "Stay calm. Stay focused. Don't lose her." He placed his trembling fingers at her neck, barely a pulse. Weak, fluttering, almost gone. The passengers leaned forward in their seats, holding their breath, as though the whole cabin existed inside this single fragile moment. A woman spoke up, her voice sharp, cutting through the silence. "This is insane. He's a janitor. If she dies, it's because you let a child play doctor." Her words sliced through the air like glass. Richard stood abruptly, his voice booming with a force that silenced her instantly. "That child has already saved her twice. Where were you? Where was anyone else? He's the only reason she's alive right now." His words trembled with rage and gratitude all at once. He turned back, his eyes glistening. "Liam, do whatever you must. I trust you." Liam's throat tightened. Trust? That word hit him harder than the storm shaking the plane. He had been invisible his whole life, a janitor, a nobody. And now, here he was, carrying the weight of a billionaire's hope in his trembling hands. "Okay," he whispered, steadying himself. "Okay." He began compressions again, each push a desperate plea. The sound of his palms pressing against Eleanor's chest echoed in the cabin, a rhythm of life fighting against death. "Come on, Mrs. Hartley," he urged softly. "Don't give up. Not now." Outside, thunder growled. The plane jolted violently, knocking a glass to the floor where it shattered, its shards scattering like silver stars across the carpet. Passengers gasped, gripping their seats tighter, but still, they couldn't look away from the boy fighting for the woman's life. Liam bent low, giving her another breath. His lungs burned, his arms screamed with exhaustion, but he refused to stop. Suddenly, Eleanor coughed, a weak but unmistakable sound. Her chest lifted slightly beneath his hands. "She's back again." Liam gasped. Relief surged through his body, nearly making him collapse. Richard fell to his knees beside her, tears streaming down his face. "Ellie, stay with me, please. Just hold on a little longer." For a fleeting moment, hope returned. But Eleanor's breaths were still shallow, and her eyelids fluttered weakly. She whispered something faintly, her voice almost lost in the roar of the engines. Richard leaned in close. "What is it, love?" Her lips barely moved. "Don't leave me." Richard's chest heaved. He kissed her hand, whispering fiercely, "Never. I will never leave you." But the storm outside showed no mercy. The jet rattled, lightning flashing so close it painted the cabin in white fire. The intercom crackled again, the captain's voice strained. "We've been diverted to a smaller airstrip due to the storm. There are no medical teams stationed there." Emergency responders are 30 minutes out. Gasps filled the cabin. 30 minutes. For Eleanor, 30 minutes could mean everything or nothing. Liam's stomach twisted. He looked at Richard, then at Eleanor, then at his trembling hands. 30 minutes. No doctor. No paramedics. Just him. The boy who was never supposed to be here. With Eleanor's life slipping away again and no medical help within reach, would the fate of a billionaire's wife rest entirely in the hands of a teenage janitor? The jet's wheels screeched against the rain-soaked runway, jolting every passenger in their seats. Outside, storm clouds boiled like angry giants, lightning tearing across the night sky. Inside, the air was even heavier, thick with fear, prayers, and disbelief. Eleanor's breathing was shallow, a thin thread between life and death. Her body trembled slightly beneath the oxygen mask, and her skin glistened with cold sweat. Richard gripped her hand tighter. "Hold on, Ellie. Please. Just a little longer." But 30 minutes, 30 endless minutes, without proper medical help. Everyone knew the truth. She might not make it. Liam sat slumped beside her, his chest heaving, arms aching from the battle he had already fought twice. He felt the weight of the cabin stairs. Some were filled with doubt, others with awe. But Richard's eyes, they were filled with something Liam had never seen directed at him before. Trust. The boy swallowed hard. "I can't let her slip away again." He pressed 2 fingers against Eleanor's neck. The pulse was fading. Too faint. "She's crashing," he whispered, his voice cracking. "I need to do this again." Richard's head snapped toward him. "Then do it. Please." The plane rolled to a stop, rain hammering against its metal shell. Passengers sat frozen, as though moving might shatter what little hope remained. Liam knelt once more, his palms finding the center of Eleanor's chest. His muscles screamed in protest, but he ignored the pain. "Stay with me, Mrs. Hartley," he whispered. His voice trembled, but his eyes burned with determination. "Press. Breathe. Press. Breathe." Each push was a battle cry, each breath a desperate prayer. Richard leaned in close, his forehead against Eleanor's. "Ellie, you hear me? Don't leave me, love. Not tonight." The seconds dragged like hours. Liam's arms shook, his vision blurred with sweat. For a terrifying moment, there was nothing. No movement, no breath, no pulse. And then, Eleanor gasped. A ragged, desperate sound that filled the cabin like music. Her chest heaved, oxygen flowing back into her lungs. "She's breathing." Liam shouted, his voice breaking. Relief flooded his face, tears spilling freely. Richard let out a sob so raw it silenced the entire jet. He gathered his wife into his arms, cradling her trembling body. Thank you, my boy. You saved her. You saved my whole world." The cabin erupted, some crying, some applauding, others whispering in stunned disbelief. The wealthy passengers who had scoffed at Liam earlier now stared at him with wide, humbled eyes. A janitor, a teenager, the unlikeliest of heroes. Liam sat back against the wall, exhausted beyond words. His chest rose and fell heavily, his body trembling, but his heart swelled. He had done the unthinkable. Minutes later, the emergency crews finally arrived, rushing Eleanor away on a stretcher. Richard followed, but not before pausing. He turned back to Liam, his powerful voice breaking with emotion. "You will never be just a janitor again. Do you hear me? You are family now, and I owe you a debt I can never repay." The boy's lips trembled. He lowered his eyes, whispering, "I was just doing what was right." Richard gripped his shoulder firmly, his voice fierce. "No, you gave me back my life. My wife is my life." As the billionaire disappeared into the storm with his wife, Liam sat quietly, staring at his trembling hands. Hands that had once scrubbed floors, now had saved a life. Hands that no one noticed until tonight. If you were in Liam's place, overlooked, underestimated, yet standing in the face of life and death, would you have had the courage to act? Or would fear have kept you frozen,